A billionaire gave a homeless single mother his unlimited credit
I'm
card
sorry.
and walked
No,
away. Less
it's
than
okay.
1 hour later, a
Let me help.
transaction receipt appeared on his phone. It wasn't food, it wasn't clothes, it wasn't a five-star hotel booking. It was something he couldn't ignore. Instantly, he knew there would be consequences, because in that moment she made a decision that would rewrite her future and expose a truth neither of them was ready to face. Your old Marcus Sterling had stopped believing in human goodness years ago. As CEO of Sterling Global Industries, a pharmaceutical empire worth $11.3 billion, he'd watch people lie, manipulate, and betray for far less than pocket change. His penthouse suite overlooking Boston Harbor had windows that stretched 12 feet high, art worth millions, hanging on walls that echoed with expensive emptiness. He owned vacation homes in 3 countries. His watch cost more than most people earned in a year. Yet every morning he woke up feeling like a man drowning in shallow water. His late father, Solomon Sterling, had drilled one lesson into him since childhood. Trust is a currency fools spend freely, son. The poor are especially dangerous. Give them an inch, they'll take everything and still demand more. They can't help themselves. Desperation makes thieves of everyone. Marcus had carried that gospel like scripture for 37 years. Every charitable donation filtered through lawyers and accountants, every act of giving calculated for tax benefits and public image. He'd never once looked poverty in the face and simply helped. Not without conditions, not without control, not without protecting himself first. But that January morning something cracked in the ice around his chest. He was late for an emergency board meeting, rushing through Back Bay Station with his assistant trailing 3 steps behind. His Italian wool coat cost $8,000. His leather briefcase held contracts worth $40 million. His phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from investors, lawyers, executives, all demanding pieces of his attention. Then he saw her. Huddled against the cold tile wall near the Orange Line entrance sat a woman, maybe early 30s, with exhaustion carved into every line of her face. A little girl, no older than 6, slept curled in her lap, wrapped in a donated coat 2 sizes too large. The woman's arms were locked around the child like a fortress made of flesh and bone and desperate love. A piece of cardboard rested beside them. Black marker, shaky letters. Single mother, lost our home. Anything helps. God bless you. Marcus stopped walking. His assistant nearly crashed into him. Mr. Sterling, the board is waiting. We have exactly 9 minutes to... Wait here, Marcus said, his voice distant, disconnected from the urgency around him. He approached slowly, expensive shoes clicking against subway tile, unsure why his body moved when every logical part of his brain screamed, keep walking. Homeless people were everywhere in Boston. This wasn't special. This wasn't different. This was just another casualty of a system he'd helped build. Except something about her stopped him cold. When the woman looked up, there was no performance in her eyes, no rehearsed desperation or practiced plea, just bone-deep exhaustion, the kind that settles into marrow after months of carrying weight no single person should bear. Her lips were chapped from winter wind. Her fingernails were clean but ragged. She'd given up on vanity but not on dignity. I'm sorry, she said immediately, voice rough from cold and disuse. We're not bothering anyone. We can move if we need to. Her apology for existing hit Marcus harder than any business loss ever had. What's your name? He asked, kneeling down despite the protests of his expensive pants touching filthy subway floor. She blinked, surprised that Kindness wore a suit that expensive. Sarah, she said quietly. Sarah Jenkins. And your daughter? The woman's arms instinctively tightened around the sleeping child. Protective, primal. Her name is Lily. She just turned 6 last week. Marcus studied Sarah's face. Intelligence lived behind that exhaustion, education in the careful way she spoke. This wasn't someone born into poverty. This was someone who'd fallen from somewhere higher and couldn't find footing on the way down. How long have you been out here? He asked. Shame flickered across Sarah's features like a match struck in darkness. 5 months. We were staying with my sister until November, but she lost her apartment too. We've been rotating between here and the shelter on Mass Avenue when they have space. 5 months. A 6-year-old child sleeping on subway floors for 5 months while thousands of people walk past every single day. His assistant cleared her throat impatiently behind him. Mr. Sterling, we really must... Marcus raised one hand, silencing her without breaking eye contact with Sarah. His father's voice echoed in his skull. The desperate will bleed you dry and smile while doing it? Maybe it was time to test that theory himself, to prove once and for all whether his father had been right or whether Marcus had spent 37 years believing a lie that protected his wallet but poisoned his soul. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Sarah's eyes widened slightly, probably expecting a few bills if she was lucky, maybe $20, maybe $50, if the universe felt generous. Instead, Marcus pulled out a sleek black credit card, platinum edges, raised numbers, no spending limit, no restrictions, just pure unrestricted access to wealth most people couldn't comprehend in their wildest dreams. Sarah stared at it like he'd pulled out a weapon. Take it, Marcus said, holding the card between them like a bridge between two different worlds. I don't understand, Sarah stammered, pulling Lily closer, as if the card itself might hurt them. It's yours for 24 hours, Marcus explained, his voice steady despite the chaos of doubt screaming inside his head. Buy whatever you want. No limits, no questions, no conditions. Sarah's hands began to tremble. Sir, this has to be some kind of trick. People don't just hand out credit cards to strangers, especially not to people like me. I want to see something, Marcus said, and for the first time in years he spoke complete truth. I want to see what someone with nothing does when given everything. I want to test something my father taught me, prove him right or prove him wrong. He pressed the card into her palm. Her fingers were ice cold, rough from exposure, shaking like leaves in a storm. Why me? Sarah whispered, tears pooling in eyes that had cried themselves empty months ago. Marcus looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully despite the cold, despite the noise, despite the absolute instability of her entire world. He thought about his own childhood, nannies in private schools and skiing in Switzerland, every need met before he could even name it. This child had nothing except a mother who refused to let go. Because I'm tired of assumptions, Marcus said quietly, because I want to believe there's still something good left in people who've lost everything. Prove my father right or prove him wrong. Either way, I'll finally know the truth. Sarah closed her fingers around the card slowly, like someone touching fire for the first time and expecting to be burned. 24 hours, Marcus repeated, standing up. His knees ached from kneeling on frozen tile. "Spend whatever you want. There's no pin. Just sign your name. I'll find you here tomorrow morning. Same time, same place." His assistant looked physically ill. "Mr. Sterling, this is highly irregular. We should at least establish as parameters, legal protection." "No parameters," Marcus said firmly, his eyes still locked on Sarah. "No protection, just trust." The word felt foreign in his mouth. Trust. He'd spent decades avoiding it like a disease. Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She just clutched the card like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning, her entire body shaking with emotions Marcus couldn't begin to name. As he walked away, his father's voice whispered warnings in his head. "She'll drain your account. She'll disappear into the night. You're a fool, Marcus, a sentimental, naive fool." But another voice, quieter, more fragile, whispered something different. What if she doesn't? Marcus didn't sleep that night. His penthouse felt cavernous and cold despite the heating system that cost more than a car. He stood at the window staring at Boston's glittering skyline, wondering if somewhere down there Sarah and Lily were finally warm for the first time in months. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app. The credit card was linked to his personal account. He could track every transaction in real time, every purchase, every location, every choice she made. For hours, nothing. Midnight came and went. 2, 3, still nothing. Why wasn't she spending? Was she afraid? Did she think it was a trap? Or worse, was she planning something big, waiting for stores to open, preparing to maximize every possible dollar? At 6:23 a.m., his phone buzzed. Transaction 3784, location 24-hour CVS downtown crossing. Marcus's pulse spiked. He clicked for details, but the app only showed the amount, not what was purchased, just numbers. Then another notification, transaction 5219, location Target South Bay. Then another 2863 Dunkin' Donuts. His chest tightened, not with anger, but with something stranger, anticipation. She was spending, yes, but carefully, modestly. These weren't the transactions of someone drunk on sudden wealth. These were the purchases of someone desperately practical. By 8:47 a.m., Marcus couldn't wait anymore. He called his driver. "Cancel everything today," he told his assistant when she called, panicked about the missed board meeting. "Mr. Sterling, you have 4 critical meetings and the investors are furious." "I don't care," Marcus said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "Cancel it all, reschedule, handle it. I don't care how." He dressed quickly, grabbed his coat, and had his driver take him to Back Bay Station. But 3 blocks away, he told the driver to stop. He needed to walk, needed to feel the cold air, needed to remember what the city actually felt like when you weren't insulated by wealth. When he reached the Orange Line entrance, Sarah was exactly where he'd left her, but everything else had changed. Lily was awake now, sitting beside her mother, wearing a brand new purple winter coat with a fur-lined hood. Her hair had been brushed, pulled back with a small butterfly clip. She clutched a new stuffed elephant, hugging it like treasure, while she colored in a fresh coloring book with crayons still smelling like the package. Sarah saw Marcus approaching and immediately stood up, the credit card already in her trembling hand. "I was going to return it," she said quickly, panic edging her voice. "I promise I was. I just needed to get a few things first. Basic things, necessary things." "Keep it," Marcus said gently, raising both hands. "You still have hours left." Sarah's shoulders sagged with something between relief and confusion. I don't understand you. That makes two of us, Marcus admitted. He glanced at Lily, who was watching him with wide, curious brown eyes. You bought her a coat. She was freezing, Sarah said simply, as if that explained everything. And perhaps it did. Perhaps that was the only explanation that mattered. Marcus knelt down to Lily's level, careful not to startle her. That's a nice elephant. What's her name? Lily hugged the toy tighter, shy but smiling. Stella, she whispered. That's a beautiful name, Marcus said softly, his throat tight for reasons he couldn't explain. He looked up at Sarah. What else did you buy? Sarah hesitated, then slowly pulled two crumpled receipts from her pocket and handed them over, like evidence in a trial she was certain to lose. Marcus scanned the first receipt. Children's winter coat, size 6, children's boots, waterproof socks, 3-pack, children's underwear, pack of 7, stuffed elephant toy, coloring books, crayons, children's multivitamins, Band-Aids, Neosporin, children's cold medicine. His throat tightened. Every single item was for Lily, not one thing for herself. The second receipt was from a grocery store: bread, peanut butter, granola bars, apples, juice boxes, crackers, string cheese, a gallon of milk, and at the bottom, something that made Marcus's breath catch. Women's Shelter Donation Fund, $100. He looked up sharply. You donated money? Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. The shelter on Mass Avenue. They've helped us when they could. They're always full, always running out of supplies. I thought if I had extra, even just for one day, maybe I could help them, help someone else. Someone else? Marcus repeated, his voice barely functional. You're homeless. You've been sleeping on subway floors for 5 months, and you gave money to help other people. There are women there with babies, Sarah said quietly, with teenagers, with disabilities. Some of them have it so much worse than we do. I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. If I could give back even a little, even for one day, I had to. Marcus stared at the receipts. His father's voice was completely silent now, obliterated by the truth printed on thermal paper. This woman, who had every reason to be selfish, who had every justification to think only of herself and her daughter, had spent a billionaire's money on necessities, medicine, and charity, not liquor, not designer clothes, not jewelry or electronics or anything remotely self-indulgent, just survival, just kindness, just love. You didn't buy anything for yourself, Marcus said, his voice strained. Not a single thing. Sarah shook her head. Lily comes first. She always comes first. I can manage. I've managed this long, but she deserves better. She deserves to be warm, to be safe, to be a child. Marcus looked at Lily, coloring a picture of a butterfly with fierce concentration. Stella the elephant tucked under her arm, a child who'd spent 5 months learning that the world was cold and unstable, but who still smiled, still colored, still hoped. For the first time in his life, Marcus Sterling felt genuinely small, not in wealth, not in power, but in character, in humanity, in basic human decency. This homeless single mother had more grace in her roughened fingertips than he'd cultivated in 37 years of privilege. Come with me, he said suddenly, the words tumbling out before his brain could catch up. Sarah blinked. What? Both of you? Come with me, please. Fear flickered in her eyes. Where? Somewhere warm, Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can finally stop running. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. She looked at her daughter, then at the man kneeling before them, and for the first time in 5 months she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, not everyone in the world was cruel. Marcus took them to the Four Seasons first, not his penthouse that felt too invasive, too overwhelming. Instead, he booked a corner suite overlooking the public garden with 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and windows that let in actual sunlight instead of fluorescent subway glare. Sarah stood in the doorway, frozen, unable to cross the threshold. "It's okay," Marcus said gently. "This is yours. For as long as you need it. No conditions, no expectations, just safety." Lily, unburdened by adult disbelief, ran inside immediately, her new boots squeaking on polished hardwood. She touched everything with wonder: the velvet couch, the heavy curtains, the bowl of fresh fruit on the marble counter. "Mama, look!" Lily called, pointing at the bathroom. "There's a bathtub, a really big one, like in the movies." Sarah finally stepped inside, moving like someone walking through a dream that might shatter at any moment. She set down the plastic bag that held everything she owned, literally everything that remained of her previous life, and turned to Marcus with tears streaming freely. "I don't understand," she whispered, voice fracturing. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" Marcus had been asked that question 1,000 times in business. People always wanted to know his angle, his strategy, his hidden agenda. But standing there watching a mother see safety for the first time in months, he realized he didn't have an agenda. He just had a choice. "You reminded me what money is actually for," he said quietly. "I'd forgotten. Or maybe I never knew." Sarah walked over to where Lily was pressing buttons on the TV remote, delighted by every channel that appeared. She knelt down and wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her like she'd been afraid to hold her too tightly before, as if hope itself might break. "You need to rest," Marcus said, his voice thick. "Order room service. Take a real bath. Sleep in an actual bed. I'll come back tomorrow morning. We'll figure out the next steps then." "Next steps?" Sarah asked, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. "Housing, employment, school for Lily, healthcare, childcare, stability." Marcus listed them like a business plan because that's what his brain did. It solved problems systematically. "None of this has to be temporary unless you want it to be." Sarah stared at him like he'd just spoken a language she'd forgotten existed. "You're serious?" "Completely. You're a stranger. We're nobody. We're just 2 people who got unlucky and couldn't climb back out." "You were nobody," Marcus corrected gently. "Now you're someone I care about. Now you matter. Now you have someone who won't let you fall again." Sarah opened her mouth to argue, to protest, to explain all the reasons. This couldn't be real. But exhaustion won. 5 months, hypervigilance and fear and sleeping with one eye open came crashing down. She sank onto the couch, her body folding like someone who'd been holding up the sky and could finally let it rest on something stronger. "Thank you," she whispered, and the words carried the weight of 5 months of suffering compressed into 2 syllables. Marcus nodded, his throat too tight to speak. "Get some rest, Sarah. You're safe now. Both of you." As he left the suite, he heard Lily's delighted laughter echoing behind him, and Marcus Sterling realized he was smiling. Not the calculated, camera-ready smile he used in boardrooms, but something genuine, something human, something his face had almost forgotten how to do. That night, Marcus made phone calls, not to lawyers or PR teams or financial advisors, but to people who actually helped: social workers, housing advocates, job placement specialists, education coordinators. He used his name not as a weapon, but as a key to open doors that had been slammed in Sarah's face for months. By morning, he had options: real, tangible, sustainable options. He returned to the Four Seasons at 9 a.m. carrying coffee and a bag of fresh pastries from a bakery Lily would love. When Sarah opened the door, she looked transformed, not in appearance. She still wore the same worn clothes, but in posture, in the way she stood straighter, in the way her eyes held something other than perpetual fear. Lily was drawing at the table, humming a song about butterflies. Stella sat proudly beside her, overseeing the artwork. "Morning," Marcus said, handing Sarah the coffee. She took it with both hands, inhaling the steam like a memory she'd thought was lost forever. "Real coffee from an actual coffee shop. I forgot what that was like." They sat together while Lily colored and Marcus laid out the plan: a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood near good schools, subsidized initially, but with a pathway to full independence. Job training programs matched to her skills, healthcare coverage. Lily enrolled in first grade at a public school with excellent ratings. "This isn't charity," Marcus clarified, echoing what he'd been telling himself all night. "It's an investment. You're intelligent, capable, and resilient. You just need a foundation to rebuild from, a place to stand so you can start climbing again." "I don't know how to repay you," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You already did," Marcus replied. "You showed me that goodness still exists in people. That desperation doesn't automatically create monsters. That my father was wrong about everything that actually matters." Sarah shook her head, more tears falling. "I just bought what Lily needed." "Exactly," Marcus said. "You had unlimited wealth for 24 hours, and you chose love over greed. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How many people would have drained that card, buying things for themselves, and walked away without looking back?" Sarah looked at her daughter, carefully coloring inside the lines of a flower, her small tongue poking out in concentration. "She's all I have. She's all that matters. Everything I do, every choice I make, it's all for her." "I know," Marcus said softly. "I saw it in those receipts. I saw it in that donation to the shelter. You could have taken everything, but you gave anyway. That's not just good. That's extraordinary." 3 weeks later, Sarah and Lily moved into their new apartment. 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor of a clean, quiet building with a small playground out back. It wasn't luxury, laminate counters, builder-grade carpet, but it was theirs. Walls that didn't move, a door that locked from the inside, heat that worked, windows that let in light without letting in wind. Markers helped them move in, carrying boxes, assembling furniture from IKEA, laughing when Lily insisted on supervising by placing Stella on every flat surface and declaring it decorated. "She's very particular about interior design," Sarah joked, watching her daughter arrange stuffed animals with the seriousness of an architect. Marcus didn't mind. For the first time in years, he felt useful, not powerful, not influential, not wealthy, just useful, just present, just human. That evening, after Lily fell asleep in her new bed, her very first bed that wasn't a couch or a floor, Sarah and Marcus stood in the small living room. I start the workforce development program next Monday, Sarah said. Medical coding and billing, stable work, good benefits. You're going to be incredible at it, Marcus said, and he meant it. Sarah looked around the apartment, her eyes glistening. I keep waiting to wake up back at the subway station, to realize this was all some elaborate dream. It's real, Marcus assured her. It's yours. No one can take it away. She turned to face him. Why did you choose us out of all the people you could have helped? Marcus had thought about that every day. Because you looked at your daughter the way my mother used to look at me, he said quietly, before she died, before my father turned cold and bitter. You looked at Lily like nothing else in the world existed, and I realized I'd spent 37 years believing people like you didn't exist anymore. Sarah wiped her eyes. You gave us a future. No, Marcus said. You already had a future. I just helped you reach it. You did the hard part. You survived. You kept Lily safe. You stayed good when the world gave you every reason to be bitter. That's all you. Sutton smiled through tears. You're different than I expected. When I first saw you, I thought you'd be cold. Cruel, maybe. I was all of those things, Marcus admitted. You changed that. You and Lily. You reminded me that wealth is worthless if it doesn't multiply meaning. They stood in comfortable silence, the apartment settling around them with creaks and hums that sounded like peace. Lily's soft breathing drifted from the bedroom. For the first time in 5 months, Sarah looked relaxed, and for the first time in 37 years, Marcus felt like his life had actual purpose. Months passed. Sarah completed her training with honors and landed a position at Boston Medical Center. Lily thrived in first grade, no longer carrying the weight of the streets on her small shoulders. Marcus visited often, not as a benefactor, but as a friend, someone who attended Lily's school talent show, someone who helped with apartment maintenance, someone who showed up. He learned things about himself he'd never known, that he liked cooking simple meals more than expensive restaurants, that children's laughter was better than board meeting applause. One evening, Sarah handed him something, his credit card. I kept it, she admitted, blushing. I was scared that if I returned it, all of this would disappear. Marcus smiled, closing her fingers back around the card. Keep it. Emergency fund. For Lily. For peace of mind. You've proven exactly what you do with it. You've proven I can trust you more than I trust most people I've known for decades. Sarah stared at the card, then at him. You really mean that? Completely. She wiped her eyes, laughing through tears. You're the strangest billionaire I've ever met.